Alright, so welcome to another video. In this video, I'm going to be talking about just three topics. But all three topics are going to have one relation, and in that relation is going to be their effects or the effects of the climate on the environment. More specifically, the increasing temperatures and how that's going to be affecting specific regions in the world, be it species, be it environmental, be it us. Let's jump right into it and roll that intro. So the first thing that I'm going to be touching on is the effects of fish size and biodiversity in food webs. So what's happening here is that a lot of the effects in temperature are also affecting the overall size and growth rate of fish globally. A new study identified that climate change and global warming is going to have unprecedented effects on the size and growth rate of multiple fish species globally, and their effects on food webs not only for other species within the environment but also for us. The study essentially confirmed that the global trends of increasing temperature are effectively changing, or I guess you could say shifting, fish sizes globally. The hypothesis was that effectively larger fish species tended to get bigger as temperatures increased, while smaller fish species tended to go down the opposite direction and get smaller. It was stated that the changes in fish body sizes were relatively dependent on the temporal and spatial impacts, more so leading towards the fact that a lot of the changes within the fish species sizes were dependent more on temporal changes than they were on the spatial aspects. In fact, what they found was that the fish species changed shape, form, or I guess you'd say a better word would be their morphology changed faster through temporal than through spatial. What the study did point towards was that spatial trends can help us predict the long-term estimates of these changing fish sizes. The study concluded that a lot of the changing fish sizes through different species, through different environments globally, as a result of the increasing temperatures, are going to have a drastic effect on the food webs through different ecosystems, ultimately impacting the stability and the resilience of each ecosystem individually, causing potential cascading effects that we may not be able to reverse. This not only affects the environment, it also affects us, as we as a species rely on the ocean for a lot of our food sources, and a lot of our recreational activity our revenue comes from the sea. Remove a lot of the fish, or the fish move or die off from certain environments that require those species to gain revenue, we have a cascading effect as well through the economy. Not good. Second topic, climate change and biodiversity loss. A new study published by the UCL Center of Biodiversity and Environmental Research concluded that global trends in increasing temperatures are going to have a sudden crash in biodiversity. The study identified that a lot of species tend to adapt or cope with changing temperatures within their environments. However, the thing here is that once their temperature threshold reached, or becomes reached, or passes, would be a better word, once their temperature threshold is passed, these species begin to fail off or die, essentially. Then unable to cope with the shifting temperatures within that environment. They'll either leave or they'll become extinct. How these researchers have tried to explain the biodiversity loss as a result of increased global temperature is a series of cliffs. A lot of the times that people talk about this, they say it's a slope, downward slope, or an increasing slope. Either way, how they've explained it is that it's a cliff. They'll start to adapt, and then once their temperature threshold is reached, they start to drop. So how these researchers came to this conclusion was that they looked at historical climate projections from every year up until the year 2100, as well as looking at each species' range and distribution within global environments. What they discovered through doing this research and through looking at this historical data was that by the year of 2100, 73% of species will experience temperatures well above their temperature threshold. And what this means is that we could see massive die-offs of certain species globally. If temperatures continue to increase at a rate that they are currently, to the point where we go past the 4 degrees Celsius threshold globally, a lot of species, more specifically 15% of global species, will experience temperatures that they will not be able to cope with. And what happens here is that a lot of these species are going to die off or leave environments, causing irreversible damages to the ecosystem. However, what they've also stated is, and this is the good stuff, well, good in terms of it's going to be bad, but it's not going to be as bad as what it could be. What they've stated is that if we do mitigate our emissions to the point where we don't go past the 2 degrees Celsius threshold, 2% of species will be affected by the increasing temperatures. However, the problem here is that those 2%, that 2% of species, what lays in there are a lot of coral communities that thrive in these environments. And what these coral communities have are flourishing ecosystems. They've got tons of species, they've got huge biodiversities. So 2% may not seem like much compared to 15%, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a lot. With that being said, the conclusion here, or to get out of this section, is that mitigation effects and reducing our emissions needs to be taken into action immediately. And I don't mean that lightly, I mean that it needs to be done. Because what we could effectively be doing is saving thousands of species globally and effectively helping our economy as well as the economy of the environment. Topic number 3, estuaries are warming at twice the rate the ocean and air temperatures are currently. Researchers from the University of Sydney illustrated that estuaries are currently warming at a rate of 2.16 degrees Celsius. What I mean here is that every year they are increasing by 0.2 degrees Celsius. This isn't good, this is bad. And what I mean is that these estuaries are home or are a habitat to a lot of important processes that the environment itself relies on, as well as species. To give you an idea, estuaries are utilized primarily for breeding, for migratory, for feeding, as well as for shelter for a lot of juvenile and adult species from a lot of predators. It's also utilized for a lot of recreational activities such as fishing, and a lot of fisheries rely on these areas for fresh water or saline species. It's a very, very high economical use area. Dr. Elliot Gaines, a researcher on the paper, has stated that this increasing temperature is an increasing temperature at an order of magnitude faster than any other global ocean and air temperature. Previous models, which described a lot of the estuaries, cannot rely primarily on ocean air temperatures to determine estuaries' overall health and condition from climate change and global warming. It would more so be accurate to determine their individual traits as well as their morphology and the type of system that these estuaries are within, because each system interacts differently with one another as well as differently with the surrounding environment. It makes sense. For example, Professor Ross has stated that because of the shallowness of rivers and lagoons, temperatures tend to increase a lot faster than compared to lakes. Different systems, different morphologies interact differently with the surrounding environment. Therefore, not only will species suffer the results of desiccation or loss of environment because of increasing global temperatures, a lot of communities or human-made communities that utilize these areas for recreational purposes such as tourism or fishing, as well as business purposes such as through boating or through fisheries, will suffer firsthand. you'll see large decline in economic use as well as large decline in overall use, I guess you could say would be a better way to put it, rather than the sugar-coated. Overall use, put it all into one category. All in all, the rate at which global temperatures are changing or increasing, we are definitely noticing or experiencing shifts in a lot of biodiversity as well as ecosystems on the planet. We don't even have to see it right now. Models are predicting future changes in the environment that are going to be very real at the rate at which we are going. We're already seeing changes in the environment as a result of these large increasing temperatures. We're seeing shifts in migratory patterns. We're seeing shifts in species moving to certain areas we didn't think they'd be able to survive. Stuff's already happening. The data is just there to back it up. There's no doubt in my mind that it is of utter importance that we start mitigating our effects on the environment or our overall emissions, because we're going to see large cascading effects that are going to damage the environment, and it's going to be irreversible. We're already seeing some of that. There's already been some species extinct. There's already been some species that we just cannot help. There's some environments that we cannot help because of how damaged we've made them. So it has not become more of a reason for us to push forward than these models are telling us to. We need to make action, and we need to do it now. Just mitigate. It sounds simple. It's not. It's a collective effort, but it needs to be done. Anyway, with that being said, I hope you guys liked that video. May have come a little bit late, might be a little bit late, maybe like a day or two, I'm sorry. But I will see you guys in 2 weeks for another video. Make sure you hit that subscribe down below if you like what you saw. Make sure you educate, don't eradicate, and I will see you guys in 2 weeks' time for another video. Catch you later.